Welcome to the Chronically Healthy Life show. When you hear the word chronically, do you automatically associate it with chronic disease? We all do. It's been programmed right into us. But what if we flip the whole ideas on its head? Let's discover how we can create chronic health in our bodies, our minds, our finances, our relationships, and of course, in our lives. Welcome to the place where chronically means healthy, wealthy, joyful, and ridiculously alive. Let's flip the script together. Today, I am so excited to be joined by two other chronic health collective coaches. And the topic we're going to talk about may be a little controversial, but we're talking behind the scenes on how important it is to share our views and opinions of what has happened over the last 5 years. And I'm starting to see that fear mongering happening again now. And of course, we're talking about the antivirus, right? So let's kick it off. I'm just gonna kick it off. So, Kristy, what are your views on the antivirus?
Well, personally, the first thing that popped in my head when I heard about the terrible cruise where they were carried off on stretchers was, how do we know that's even true?
Mhm.
Because the news is they're just paid actors paid to read a script off a teleprompter, and how do we even know that's true? So I'm so cynical now because I don't really believe anything they say, and I don't watch the news anymore because I don't believe anything they say. And I think it's probably just as much of a hyped up scam as COVID was. That's my opinion. I also have a question that nobody ever seems to ask or answer, which is, why aren't we asking why there are heavily funded secret labs around the world that are whose only job is to develop bioweapons? Why aren't we asking that question? Because that's the real root of the problem. Um,
Mhm.
why is that even in existence? And so, if something got out, it's absolutely 100% on purpose. And uh, yeah, I'm very like, it's just another big scare.
Correct,
Health
correct.
healthy and you're going to be fine.
Well,
Yeah.
I love what you say there. It starts over groove again. It's almost like deja vu. That's how coronavirus, COVID-19 started back in the day. And of course, once again, they got everyone shelter in place inside the cabin. So, like if this was a thing, now they made sure that everyone caught it because it's circulating in the air and everyone's stuck inside, right? But what you said is sort of interesting about the labs, these bio labs, and it's proven as a fact, right? There's a lot of studies out there, and that'll be another episode in itself, and we're going to talk about that. But it's funny because the antivirus can only be spread if you're directly exposed to, like these mice feces and urine once it's aerosolized and you're breathing it in. For people to people transmission, it needs to be transmission. It needs to be basically, I guess, modified, right? And that's where these labs come in, and they say that the Andes version of it is the one that can be human to human transmission. But the interesting thing is, so far, there are no proven people that caught the Andes version, and I hate to call it Andes. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. My name, which is horrible, right? So to me, already, there's a lot of fear mongering for something that, and it can happen, because a famous actor actually died from it last year, right? You guys know about that, right? Gene Hackman, he
Yeah.
actually died from the hantavirus, right? So it can happen anywhere, but I think the total there's what maybe 50 cases a year, right? So, Don, what are your thoughts? Like those are my thoughts so far.
I share the sentiment, after what we've all been through with the pandemic, the media's hyping up this, yet another outbreak of something. And, the hantavirus has been around for years. It's not like this is something new. And it really wasn't, well, the studies show that it's not transmitted, by human beings, right? The mice is just the ones that are the hosts of this
Hmm.
disease. And so, you know, I'm just wondering if it's just, again, just another distraction
Hmm.
to prevent us from addressing other things that's been going on in the world. I mean, there's just so many different things that's happening with the wars and with, even the UFO disclosures. Like,
Yes.
this is a huge distraction of us really seeing, or it could also just trying to prevent us, or they're trying to how do I explain it? Um they're trying to soften the blow of what we're going to recognize of who we really are as human beings and as a society, how
I love
our
that. Yes.
existence on earth, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is something that we need to be aware of, but
Mhm.
there's other outbreaks and other diseases that is also not getting media attention, like the Ebola and you
Yeah.
know the bird flu is just a continuous thing, and
Yeah.
malaria. And so, it's, I mean, yeah, I think it's just the flavor of the month right now.
Mhm. I think, a couple of things that you said there is so true. First of all, there's always some, viral disease going around somewhere in the world, right? And
Hmm.
I think a lot of people are getting scared because they're saying that if you get the antivirus, there's like a 40, depending who you're talking about, anywhere from a 40 to 60% chance if you catch it, you're gonna die, right? Which is a much higher
Hmm.
mortality rate. But the studies that I'm seeing is like because the mortality rate is so high, if you catch it, more than likely you're gonna die before you can pass it on to someone else, right? So that's where it's very different from COVID. Like COVID, you catch it, you got symptoms or you're symptomatic. Supposedly you can transmit it when you're symptomatic, which is total BS now too. But I think that's where the very big difference is. Just like the flu, like we go to school. If your immune system's low, you're gonna catch the flu. That's just how our bodies work, right? But catching something doesn't mean you're gonna be getting really sick, depending on how robust you are, right? So I believe what you're saying there is true, and I love where you're bringing about the part where it's a distraction,
Mhm.
right? And like Kristy says, I think most of us don't really watch mainstream news anymore. I'm sort of seeing snippets of stuff, everything from people I follow and stuff like that. And it's interesting. It's like you said, there's so much going on. They're releasing the UFO files. President just went to China. Who knows what's going to happen there? They have the Iran war, right? There's so much distractions. What is really going on in the back end? And I don't want today's episode to be totally a conspiracy theory show, but that's usually what happens, right? When there's big news, they're telling you look over here while something else is happening over here,
Hmm.
right? But just trying to get back onto the hantavirus. I just don't want people falling into the whole trap. They better not start telling people to do the whole masking and walking with arrows down the super, like all these crazy things that it has no science behind it and is proven now it doesn't work. And with all the PCR testing and stuff like that, those things just don't work. And I don't want people falling for, oh man, there's a chance that you can die if you catch it. So with some health background and diving into emotional alchemy, like what are your thoughts on that, Don?
It's it's unfortunately, when it comes to your emotions, it's because of the conditions and the things that we were brought up to believe, and how we were, brought up to believe in fear. And we believe that everything we see in the media, anything that we may see from political people or higher authorities is law, that it is the truth. And so when it comes to your emotions, and regulating that, I would just caution, is for us to educate ourselves and be more aware. I mean, I know, like Chrissy says, she tries to stay away from, watching the news because it's has such a negative impact. But we also need to have enough information to be able to make that right judgment for ourselves, right? So, you know, I guess we need to just pick and choose which media we're watching or what we're reading, and then have that awareness to know that we have the resources to do more research so that we can um, feel more confident and feel healthy and know that we can make the right choices to keep ourselves safe. But what I'm afraid of is in the emotional sense, though, is that because we fear that we don't want to go through that same lockdown that we did with the pandemic. That's why we're being cautious and we're being paranoid. But we also have to remember that even with the last incident of the pandemic, even if we had gone through that challenges, we managed to get through it, and we're back to a space where we're no longer having to wear masks anymore, right? Or having to distance ourselves, or having to have conversations with people behind plexiglasses. So it's
Correct.
like, was that, I guess, for us, is just don't believe everything that we hear and follow, and make the right decisions for yourself. And if you feel more comfortable wearing the mask, or distancing yourselves, or taking extra precautions, then by all means, then that's what people need to do to just be able to continue to live our lives as normal as we can possibly can.
I totally agree with you. I'm a full believer in sovereignty and our choices over our own lives and our own bodies and our everything in our lives. But there's another level here, and I've been studying narcissism a lot, and this twisting of the narrative to that suddenly they paint it like a virus is a monster lurking outside waiting to pounce on you the second you
Mhm.
walk out your door. And that is, our bodies are designed, yes, there are viruses in the world, real natural ones,
Yeah.
but our bodies are designed to attack an invader and fight it off, and we go through the symptoms and then we're over it. We're designed that way. And
Hmm.
twisting the narrative into you have to have a vaccine or you have to do all these things in order to stop this monster from getting you is, to me, it's like a children's story. It's
Mhm.
like you're painting this picture that's all manipulation, and it's in the narrative world, I mean in the narcissistic world, that's very much a gaslighting very much a gaslighting thing, and it's also a triangulation of look over here and don't look over here with what's
Correct.
really.
Hmm.
And so you have to be so careful. And when you start turning on the wait a minute, are people who have not been vaccinated are healthier than people who have been,
Yes.
then you start questioning, like, wait a minute, what's the real truth here? And why isn't my body, why can't I trust my body? That's what it boils down to, is they're making you feel like you can't trust your own body when
Mhm.
you can. Your own body's designed. We have a whole immune system. It's
Hmm.
not, it's not really a mystery.
Mhm.
So,
Hmm.
just if you just start by taking everything with a grain of salt and going, wait a minute, this is making me feel fear. So wait, what's really happening here? That's the first step in thinking it through instead of just reacting. And I also think that there are many, many fewer people now that aren't falling for it than that believe the manipulation for COVID. I think more and more and more and more people are waking up and realizing that was there were so many lies attached to that, and they're just doing it again. So I'm
Hmm.
about people managing things a lot better this time, no matter what they try to pull on us.
I I totally I totally understand your passion. I mean, I can tell that you're really passionate about this, and how we have been influenced. But we have to remember that's not what the world that we've been living in, and so it's so easy for us to have recommendations of being aware, educating ourselves, and all of that. But we also have to take it from a more gentle approach, because these folks, some people need some time to integrate in this new way, right? Because everything that they've thought to be true is going to shift, and whether they like it or not, they're going to have a lot of questions, but we also have to remember, these are people that have not been doing the kind of research and studying that we do, right? They live in a totally different world. So their mindset is not even prepared to understand what's going on. And so as much as I think we're passionate about sharing our thoughts and helping people understand that they do have options to choose for themselves in which direction they go and how they react to that. We got to be careful on how we present that too, and be much more gentle to know that it's safer on this side to just question versus, it just normal everyday life of options to where they're afraid to have their own mind. So yeah, it's a gentle thing, and there's going to be a big paradigm shift in how we think and how we regulate ourselves and our emotions. So yeah, I just say we got to be really gentle about the messaging, but it's every little conversation that we have and is going to help people move forward quicker than just trying to throw them in a different fire pit to say, no, this is the way now, because they're going to resist.
I love that view from both of you ladies. We're gonna take a short break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about some ways, like I said, right from the beginning, I'm not saying that this does not exist. It is something that's happening in the world, like Dawn says. So, in the second segment, I want to, talk with you ladies on ways to how we can make our bodies a little bit more stronger to be resistive of not just the antivirus, but like Don says, Ebola or whatever is going to be coming down the pipeline. But we'll be right back after this.
If you were born between December 22nd, 1973 and January 1974, this message is for you. You're entering one of the most powerful energetic windows of your lifetime, your Chiron return. The Chiron return is a cycle where the wounds we've carried for decades rise to become our greatest wisdom. 2026 is your year of preparation. Release what no longer resonates, rebuild your energetic foundation, and realign with your truth. Because in 2027, everything changes. I'm Dawn, and I'm just like you. I've lived the perfectionism, the control, and been accused of being emotionally detached. And I've learned that they were never flaws, they were survival codes. Now they're being rewritten. We'll use tools like quantum evaluation, creative emotional wizardry, and principles of parallel realities to help you shift timelines, from exhaustion to embodiment, from structure to sovereignty. 2026 is a year of preparation, and 2027 is a year that everything changes. And you, the Capricorn women born in 1974, are the architects of that new era. I'll see you in my Zen Heart community as we realign, recalibrate, and get ready for what's unfolding.
Why do 98% of beauty enthusiasts rave about coolness? It's all in the blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. Introducing Coolness, Pearlescent Face and Eye Serum Cream. This powerhouse combines the antioxidative power of schisandra berries, the glow of pearl powder, hydrating wonders of dragon's blood extract. It's like a time machine for your skin, making it radiant, firm, and oh so smooth. Inspired by ancient Chinese traditions and backed by modern nutritional science, this serum cream is perfect for dry, mature, and aging skin. It's time to unlock your inner glow with coolness. Treat your skin to the best of both worlds today.
Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life show. Today, I'm joined by Don Omalza and Kristy Boyd Johnson, and we're talking about something that might be a little controversial. Controversial. But yeah, I think it's very relevant, especially in time, and we're giving our opinions, and once again, these are our opinions. We're not doctors. This is not medical advice. We're not telling everyone. I thought we should put that in there just in case. But at the same time, what we have learned, like what Kristy and Don was saying, what we have learned over the last 5 years is so important, right? Like one of the things that we always say is like when something happens, always learn how, what lesson was learned from that, right? So like a lot of people, if there's a failure, then that's it. They give up. But for us, as part of the Chronic Health Collective, we hit failures all the time, right? And what Don was sort of alluding, there's a lot of things that happened in the last 5 years, and some people are starting to see a different view of how things were, like not what they thought it was being, right? So what did we learn over this 5 years, and how we can apply that moving forward, regardless if it's with the hantavirus or anything else that's going around the world. So from that, I thought I'll let Don lead today on the second segment on, this is a real thing. What should we be doing to make sure that, that we're nice and healthy and robust?
I think, like for me, I'm just going to practice defensive hygiene, right? Just making sure that I'm washing my hands correctly. I just touched my face, but try to avoid touching my face. And use masks strategically, one of the things that I was reading, it's like because, with the mice and you have the droppings and then you're going to go ahead and, you want to clean all of that up, just know how to properly dispose of any type of feces that you might have discovered. Like don't wipe up dry dust because it'll, the dust will pick it up and it's now airborne. And so you want to, it's kind of soak it up with something, with a cleanser before you wipe it. And of course, knowing how to properly clean, using gloves, those kinds of typical things that we should be practicing in everyday life. And knowing that, we should also have an emergency preparedness, preparing our homes if we ever got, implemented with a lockdown. I mean, some kind of things we cannot prevent, right? If the government says you're going to lock us up again, that's going to happen. But how do we make that more comfortable for us, that we're more prepared this time, where we're all not trying to fight each other and trying to buy last minute supplies and all of that great stuff. I hope that never happens again. I hope that never, but unfortunately, the government does have that kind of control over us. So just being prepared with the hygiene, how we prepare our homes and how we cleanse. And, even the most healthiest of people, as much as we can do all these things to eat more foods that, boost our immunity, we don't know what kind of diseases that we get exposed to, and we don't know how each body is going to react. As resilient as we are, because we can recover, but everyone's makeup is a little bit different. So everyone's reaction is going to be a little bit different from the other. So, I preparation is the best thing. And, try not to overwhelm yourself with worry of what might happen.
I think that's huge. What are your thoughts, Kristy?
Well, for me, I'm a big believer in doing things to help my body maintain its immune system and other systems as well, because they all work together as much as they like to make us think that they separate. They're not.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like number one, having gone through the drama of figuring out of certain things I was allergic to that I was eating, I want to. I would suggest it's so easy to figure out if you've got a sensitivity to food. You just eliminate it and see if you feel better. And like a couple of days you feel better, and then a couple more days you feel better, and then then you probably want to. That's something gluten, soy. Those are two really huge ones because they're um, connected to the pesticides and the GMOs and all that. So you can eliminate food if you're sensitive to something. It doesn't make you feel good if you eat it. Just stop eating it. Um, then that helps your body calm down and get out of that hyper always fighting because you're eating things that it's fighting against. And then the more your body calms down, the easier it is to fight off if you pick up a cold or a flu virus or something like that. Um, and then the other thing for me is I have actually proven this to myself. Go out in the sun every day. The
Yes.
sun is not your enemy. The sun is responsible for all life on Earth. It's been vilified
Hmm.
when, in fact, the sun is essential to your well-being. And when I was recently teaching in the schools, and I was really sick, and I couldn't seem to shake it, and I finally just said, I'm going to go outside, and I just stood out in the sun for about 15 minutes every day, and it was like 2 days later, I was just like over it. And so the vitamin D and everything else, all the good things we get from the sun. So and breathing, and we don't realize we're holding our breath, especially if we're in a fear reaction to something that's being presented to us. So just pause and turn it off and breathe. Um, Amanda, one of our coaches, sent me this beautiful thing about being trapped between your head and your heart. And what your
Hmm.
head is telling you one thing, your heart's telling you something else. Pause and go to the lungs and breathe because they're the peaceful place between those two things. I thought that was very cool because really, when you stop and just breathe, you can
Hmm.
calm everything down and your intuition will kick in and you can start going, oh, I know what to do. Oh, I know I should go drink some orange juice or I should take a walk or I should whatever that is for you because like Dawn said, we're all different and you have to find what works for you. And,
Right.
you know, if one person can't eat eggs, but the next person thrives on eggs, you have to find what works for you. So those are my, yeah, big things.
I love that. I love that. I want to dive into both your specialties a little bit. Obviously, you're Knock Detox Club. You help people with narcissism, and a lot of narcissism going on right now, right? With all this negative news. So, what type of advice would you give people, like, with all this negativism, like how does that affect people, and how do you think people can sort of lift some of that up so they're not affected as badly? Because like you said, and even Don says, like, our emotions can affect our immune system and everything. And even we don't catch a handivirus, I'm sure we're going to catch a flu or something going around. And I think the emotions side of it is very important, and a lot of people don't. When I first met you, I didn't even know what narcissism meant. Because I live with people with it, but I never knew how it affected me. And now I'm definitely more aware of it when I'm around that type of people and how to, reset. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the number one is the gaslighting techniques. And the gaslighting is essentially making you think something is true even when it disputes your reality. It's like, oh, look at that beautiful blue sky. That sky's not blue. That sky's orange. What's wrong with you? You must be stupid. You must be crazy. You obviously don't understand the science behind color. It goes on and on. I'm just making that up off the top
Yeah.
of my head. But gaslighting is the number one thing. It's and it if the biggest thing that I found with working with my clients is that if you feel like you're being gaslit, you probably are. So if you're watching news or hearing from someone and you feel just like, ugh, that doesn't seem right,
Yeah.
listen to your own self first, because your intuition is never going to lie to you. Other people are going to could, other people, and especially, and Dawn is such a much nicer person than I am. I'm so very cynical about it. I don't trust anyone in the government. I think they're all themselves. They're all, I mean, I can't understand why they're all so extremely wealthy when they make a moderate salary. So that to me, follow the money is like a big thing. So, but with the narcissism, the other big one that I would say is the triangulation, which means triangulation is um, they're here and then they go, look, that one is doing this and that one's doing that, and you should fight. It's that. Did you ever see that meme about the cookie? The 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 politician takes 90% of the cookie and then tells the other two people that the other one is stealing their part of the cookie. And so they're fighting each other instead of looking at who just took most of the cookie. And that to me is that triangulation is we see it. You if you step back emotionally and look at it and go, are they gaslighting? Are they making me look over here when I should be looking over there? Ask yourself those questions, and you start to notice, wait a minute, wait a minute, what's really going on here? And I get very hopeful when I see things like states blocking the AI centers, and blocking the lab grown meats and all these horrible things that are just designed to be bad. So I get very hopeful for people, because I do believe that more and more and more people are waking up, and I think they're waking up faster, and I think they're waking up. And yeah, it can be scary, but once you start down that path, you can't go back.
Right. I love that.
It's a combination of being a beautiful thing and a horrifying thing, because when you look back you go, oh, but when you look forward it's positive. and
Right.
and things are moving in the right direction. We just never hear about it because the news is controlled and they're gaslighting us, so, and creating fear. So, so not don't believe. That's why I say don't believe everything. It's if they're trying to make you afraid, there's probably something they're hiding from you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Don, looking through a emotional alchemy lens, in these last few years, I really believe that, all of us, we're frequency beings, right? Like, we work on energy, we work on frequency. How can people up level their frequency or energy to be more robust in times like this? Because like, we're talking about how all these negative thoughts can
Mhm.
affect gut, and they all say your gut, that's where disease begins, right? But a lot of people don't think about their energy, like how to upload their energy, right? What were your thoughts on that?
Mhm. Well, I think right now, from my world, it really is a battle. The biggest battle is what's going on in your mind. And so, like when Christy speaks, she's so passionate. She's like, ah.
Kind of a Viking
It's
warrior.
like, well, I mean, she really cares about, how we're being impacted by everything. And she just wants to protect. She's a big protector.
Mhm.
And for me in my space, it's like I totally feel the same way, but I'm a little bit more calm because
Most definitely.
it's, I I absolutely hold the same passion. And if you ever see me at the level where Christy is like, you know it something's really really bad that for me to get to that point. But it's really is the battle of our minds, and how I've spoken about this a couple times in some of our podcasts about the mind shift, right? And I know that, people are gonna watch this, they're like, oh, tell her shut up. Because yes, there is something inherently that we could be impacted by our health. But even just going through any type of health challenge that we deal with, how we experience is totally up to us. It's because the stories, right? So how bad the experience is for you or how good the experience is for another person is because that's the definition that you're giving it. So we can totally change the definition of what we are experiencing in our mind. And that takes some work to get through. So, I know I'm going to get criticized for this feedback. But trust me, you can get there, but it does take some work and awareness, to get there. The other thing is on the emotional side and the energetic, right? There's so much more studies about energy and a lot of scientists, and they call it pseudoscience, but there's a lot of scientists on the quantum side that it reflects on how our energies are impacted. So like the whole mass, our body is a mass, really is not true. It's the perception or it's the definition of how we want to perceive this physical world that we are in. But we are energetic beings and we are impacted. We are all connected. I wanted to say we're all energetically connected. And so the more that we can flip it to on a more calm and peaceful side, just starting with you, and try to influence the next person and the next person one by one, that'll help the energetic flow. I guess Dr. Bruce Lipton did a really good analogy of how we can visualize this whole energetic thing that we're talking about, which is what we experience every day and we see on the media is, the tornadoes, right? Mm-hmm. You only get to visibly see it because that energy picks up all these material matter and that's around it, then you can see it, right? But really that energetic flow exists all the time. That's always flowing and it goes and passes through you. And it's the same as us as energetic beings. It's just tiny little particles that's moving at a quicker pace. So, if we can work on ourselves, we can impact others. And I love to look at bioenergetics, like the devices too now. So like I have this one device where you scan just your energy of your voice, and which can help you identify quickly where you are depleting in your energies. And so, these are kind of crazy things that I'm talking about, but these little things that we can expose ourselves to can help us navigate through these challenging times. And I like what Kristy talked about with the nutrition and stuff like that. I remember seeing, I think it was last week, they talked about how people are so health conscious that they're vitamin stacking, and we don't need to consume those vitamins every single day. It's actually more hazardous to our beings. So my point at all of this rambling is be aware, but also be cautious of the negative impacts that can be on you trying to protect yourselves and building your immunities of all the things that we have access to now. And they're all great. We just have to know how to utilize it in the best and right and correct way and not overdo it.
I love that. Well, we're going to take a short break and then we're just going to wrap up this episode.
Everything we're made of contains light that feeds our world to the energy that flows within us. With LifeWave X39, we've found a way to put that light to work. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHK-Cu, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality. By gently stimulating the skin with light, our non-invasive, non-transdermal X39 patches help you conquer your active lifestyle and pave a new way to vibrant health. Becoming a powerhouse is easier than you think. It all starts with your body and a little help from light. Place one LifeWave X39 patch on the body. Apply the patch to clean, dry skin in the morning. Patches may be worn for up to 12 hours before discarding. Keep well hydrated while using this product. Harness your natural potential. Reclaim youthful energy. Live long, live well, live young with LifeWave X39. Be the light. LifeWave.
Welcome back to the Chronic Health Collective. So, Kristy, why don't you lead off with final thoughts for today's episode?
Well, what I was thinking about during the break was that I think really um, the other thing about we live in this narcissistic society so that it has become normalized in our minds that being treated certain ways is normal when it is actually extremely dysfunctional and abusive, and it comes from above down, trickles down to all of us. And one of the things that I was thinking is the way during COVID that they changed the narrative so that if you didn't get vaccinated, then you were going to kill other people by not being vaccinated. When the point of a vaccine is supposedly to prevent you from getting it in the first place.
Mhm.
So why would an unvaccinated person even be any threat to anyone anywhere who, supposedly. And the way that people just shifted into this narrative without thinking about that for a minute, like, wait a minute, that's not, it's like, that's not what you said before. Oh, no, we changed our story now. Follow the science. Well, it's not actually science, it's narrative.
Mhm.
And so remember that when you're searching out, I totally agree with Don. You've got to find your own path and your own way. Everybody does. That's the reality of being human. But when you're doing that, check in with yourself and ask yourself those questions. Like, does this feel true? Why is this story changing? What is this narrative? What are they trying to make me believe? And why? Because that when it's an emotional step back and going, wait a minute, what is this really? And then that's the first thing, whether you're dealing with in your personal life with a narcissist or dealing with the whole narcissism world out there of control and coercion, which my personal thing is, she's right about me. I'm a warrior, and I fight. I walk into grocery stores without a mask, and I'm not wearing one. And and what's funny is other people will take their masks off and go, "You're right." And so sometimes all it takes is someone to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense." And then, so think about that. That's my encouragement to everyone out there, is take an emotional step back, especially if you're getting that knee-jerk feeling in you, and just go, wait a minute, what is this really? And really check in with yourself and, do whatever research, talk to whatever sources, and find out what's really going on. Guarantee you that I stand by what I said before. If it's coming from the mainstream news, it's a lie. So look at what they're lying about and why, and then what are they really trying to make you look at while they're doing this over here. The Wizard of, I call it the Wizard of Oz syndrome. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So that's personally where I am, and
Okay.
I'm very encouraging and supportive of everybody stepping into their own sovereign power, because we all have it, and we've been made to believe we don't. So, but we do. Yeah.
I love that, Christy, and a couple of things that you said sort of hit it on the head, and even relate was very relatable to me, and what Don was saying in the past episode. For me, I really believe that our bodies have this innate intelligence where, we're put on this earth to basically live and thrive, right? And not being an anti-vaxxer or anything like that, but like what you're saying about the vaccines, it was one of the ways that's supposed to boost your immune system where you can catch it, right? And that is proven to be false. I don't want to dive into that because there's a lot of signs, a lot of stories, and this episode's not about that. But I just wanted to talk about a little side conspiracy, because just like any drugs, the vaccines is a drug. All drugs have a side effect. And when Pfizer, if you got the Pfizer vaccine for COVID, there are a long list of side effects. One of them was antivirus listed right on the Pfizer side effects. And, I think a lot of people are blowing this out of proportion saying, oh, you got the Pfizer vaccine and that's why you're catching hantavirus. I don't really think that's what it means. I just think that, if your body's immune system was not robust, you got this, now you're probably more susceptible to it, not meaning that the vaccine gave it to you. So I don't want people thinking, that, oh, all these side effects, you're going to get all these things. Well, I think possibly you can get these things if your immune system has been brought down or genetically, that is in your body. And I believe we're all about epigenetics. You can turn genes on and genes off. You have that gene, now maybe that turned it on, right? Like there's still, the science is still out there, right? But I really just want to put my thoughts out there on that. And I don't want people lining up, rolling up the arms again, just because like our bodies is very robust, and but I don't want people loading up on vitamins like Don says, because you really should be working with people where they can see where your body's deficient in, and look at root causes why you're, not feeling well, catching the flu all the time, or just being tired all the time, right? Like, those are my thoughts. I really want people to think rather than be fearful of this next virus, because there's hundreds of thousands of viruses around us all the time, right? But if we're robust, we're going to be okay, right? We shouldn't be scared of the next virus, right? Don, what are your thoughts?
Um, I just, when we're talking about the energy, it's
Mhm.
about low frequency stance of your energy, which is you're vulnerable, right? And you're feeling, some people may be feeling a little bit helpless. And they're gonna start isolating themselves and paranoia is gonna kick in. But to change from low to a high frequency stance, which is resilience, right? Preparation, knowing your boundaries and sovereignty is, going to help everyone in their daily lives. And, we just have to understand that that's what we call energy leaks, right? So how we're going to manage our attentions moving forward, avoiding the victim archetype, right?
Mhm.
you know, and guarding our mental landscape. And that's what I was talking about earlier about what's going on, the battle with our mind. And then, having a good diet on your media intake.
Yes.
That's a good diet to have rather than the food. Just have a diet on your media intake. And just trying to do your best to shift from the protecting myself mentality to resilience, and just move out of the defensive mode, live your lives enjoying it and doing the things that you enjoy, instead of being living in fear on the what ifs, and just appreciate your body's design, because your body is resilient and it knows how to, protect yourself. It knows how to heal itself. But it always begins with your heart and your mind connection. So there is hope. All is not lost.
I love that. I love that. Any final thoughts, Kristy?
Um, I'm I'm good. I agree. I think we are everything. We are physical, mental, emotional, spiritual beings, and you can't separate those things. So, but you know what, Don, you made me think of is Dr. Yamamoto's lake, the polluted lake in Japan, where they all did for 3 days and did nothing to it but send it love, energy. And
Mm-hmm.
when they did the water molecule test at the end, they were pure. They looked like water molecules, looked like snowflakes. And that's that. Really, the bottom line is energetically, we don't have anything to fear because energetically, of course, getting up to that level is part of our human journey. But I love that connection between physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. All of it works together. So we have to acknowledge ourselves on all those levels.
Mhm.
And you're right, being gentle with ourselves and letting ourselves uh, figure it out. And yeah, all good. And you're right too, Andy. There's so much science out there, real science that's been suppressed, that's now coming out. So that's the stuff to watch.
I love that. I love that. Just to wrap it up, I think what we're sharing today is, our beliefs that, we are balanced beings. And one of the things that you talk about that experiment with Yamamoto with the water is, yes, that's called quantum energy, quantum theory. What's that called, Don? There's a specific term for that. And we're here, we want to send out more love to people, right? It's sort of like what Don was saying earlier, is like how we affect the next person makes a very big difference, right? If we're spreading fear and spreading chaos, there's just going to be more fear and chaos, right? Which just breaks everyone down as a society. It breaks down our immune system. And I don't care what's out there, we're going to catch it. But if we start spreading more love, right? Like you said, we they basically proved that they changed the water quality with just love, nothing else, which is really quite amazing. So if you're spreading more of these positive thoughts, we're boosting our immune system, we're getting away all this negativity, right? We're going out into the sun, we are boosting with the supplements that we do need, but and be aware of all the toxic stuff that is in the water, in the air, and doing protocols to get that out of our body. I think today, it really is about awareness in so many levels, not just on the physical level, but on the mental level and even on the energy level. And when it comes down to health and my belief of living a chronically healthy life, it is a really balance of everything, right? Most people just do one or two things, but if you're out of balance, that's when things happen, and most of the times it's not pleasant, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
we
But
want to flip that.
exactly. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Don and Kristy. If anyone wants to reach out a little further, Don's information is below, and you can dive in a little bit deeper with her specialty, because I am always asking her, what do you do too? It always blows my mind what she does, and she'll literally lead you to another level of what's going on in this world. And same thing, Christy. There's so much narcissism in this world, and we need to be able to figure out what we're being exposed to and what we can do about it. And of course, reach out to me at chronicallyhealthylife.com if you want to dive into a little bit more aspects about your terrain, of root causes and stuff like that. That's really what I specialize in. But thank you everyone for joining us on the show today. We are live every Friday at 7 p.m. CST on e360tv.com on the Vitality TV network. And of course, you can watch past replays at youtube.com at Chronically Healthy Life, and swing by, at chronicallyhealthylife.com. Watch some of our past episodes. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, stay vibrant, stay fierce, and stay ridiculously unapologetic, chronically healthy. Man, I'm tongue twisted today. We'll see you all next week.